Hello.
Emerson,
Hello, how are you doing?
good. Nice to finally see you.
Oh, thank you. So,
Uh,
Nevin, tell me your
yes.
story and what got you here.
All right. So first off, I think I may not even need this meeting thanks to your videos,
Oh, thank you.
but I feel like uh, the last couple of weeks, uh, you've helped end my seeking, and and then there was still like some nagging doubts in my mind going like, oh, will I regress? And is this it? And is there more? So that's why I scheduled a meeting. But then I watched some more of your videos, and then I feel like, I now have a lot of clarity, but I still wanted to definitely
Yeah, for sure. What happened then? What video were you watching?
oh,
Tell
so
me tell me
yeah,
tell me
I'll
the
give you the
story if you're
story.
seeking. Yeah. Yeah, it's
So
good to
my
hear.
goes back 7 years now. I think I began practicing meditation primarily as a means to um, de-stress from work,
Yep.
right? There's a lot of work pressures and stuff, and I was reading on things like productivity and others, and
Yeah.
suddenly I was like, oh, you should try meditation. So I was a self-taught meditator. About 7 years ago, I just read up on it, and oh my God, the meditation is such a complicated space. There's so many kinds and types. So I was like, okay, fine, breathing meditation. Let me just get into this. So I actually started a daily practice about 7 years ago, and I started meditating every morning, 30 minutes to 45 minutes. And it was, I didn't exactly have a teacher or anything, but it started working. I noticed after a couple of years, I used to get migraines, and those had vanished completely. I was feeling a lot more open, and stuff started getting better.
Yeah.
So 3 years into my practice, I was like, I should probably do a retreat or get a teacher and get deeper into actual meditation and see what's there because I've been reading on the internet and stuff before. So I did. Surprisingly, I found that there was a Buddhist meditation center in my city of Minneapolis
Oh,
that
nice.
was offering retreats, and it
Yeah.
was like one of those serendipitous things where I was
Yeah.
like, look, do I have to go to like East Coast or West Coast or find a meditation center? And I was just like Googling one day, and I was like, wait, there's a Vipassana retreat in my vicinity and that offers like a 7 day retreat. And it was like Theravada monks that were teaching this. So I did my first retreat, and I found I was really good at meditation, which was surprising because I was
Yeah.
like, things just clicked. I was, that kind of kickstarted my seeking more intensely because I was like, wait, there is something to this. I can actually, all of these aches and pains and this niggling stuff when I'm meditating went away. I didn't know this at the time, but I was experiencing like early jhanas or whatever you call
Yeah.
them. And I didn't know it at that time. And I was like, oh, wow, this is awesome. And I was feeling a lot more peace. So, after that, I could sit for like hours on end. So I started
Mhm.
practicing every morning for like an hour. And then when I come back from work, another, 30 minutes to 45 minutes. And, it, uh, I was getting better. I did my second Vipassana retreat. And that's when I think Emerson, it kind of, a lot of that monkey mind thing went away for me.
Mhm.
I experienced the sound of silence and that ringing thing. And
Yeah,
I was,
yeah.
hey, this is different. But it went away immediately, and I'd finish a retreat. I'd get great concentration, and then it would go. So after my second retreat, and when that effect kind of went away, I was like started seeking more intensely, started reading
It
more
becomes
beyond.
frustrating, right? You're like, oh.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It started getting frustrating, and but I still stuck to Vipassana, and I was
Mhm.
getting better and better at seeing phenomena and zapping them down to minor stages. So my third retreat, which was about 8 months ago,
Oh,
right,
okay.
and that was, I think, where stuff really shifted for me, right?
Yeah,
I On day three of the 7, 8 days.
yeah,
I was by now a pro, right? I was sitting looking at all phenomena and zapping it down. It was literally like the eye of Sauron, like wherever
yeah.
I directed my attention, that solidity or the vibrations would, vanish. And I was like seeing impermanence everywhere. And I was like, oh wow, this is awesome. At this rate, I will, you know, uh, sever the fetters and reach stream entry or
Yeah.
whatever that was, right? And around day three, it suddenly I lost my ability to meditate, right? For lack of
Oh.
things became a little more spacious and calm for me,
Mm,
and but it started then what happened was I started doubting myself. So like, wait, what happened?
mm.
My
Yeah.
ability to meditate. I was getting so good at this. So I actually spoke to the monk at that time and on our one-on-ones, and I was like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm getting agitated because I've lost my ability to meditate. When I sit or if I'm not sitting, it feels the
You
same.
can't do it anymore, right?
I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And I was like, what happened? And, is this like and the problem is things like reading Dark Knight and stuff that I was like, wait, is this supposed to be it? But I don't really feel, is this what it's supposed to be? And essentially, the monk was really helpful. He was like, you've become an advanced meditator. You've released the mind. This is good. Keep
Yeah.
doing what you're doing and sit. But he didn't give anything extra to me. So I started seeking more after that, right? Because I
Oh,
felt like, wait, I've lost now the ability to meditate. Maybe
yeah.
I need to diversify. And that's when I started branching out. I read like Shinzen Young and started doing
Okay.
some of his, then Michael Toft techniques. And before that, I had read, but I never started practicing other stuff. Now I started experimenting with different techniques. Then I
Okay.
started reading Ramana Maharshi and
Yeah.
Nisargadatta,
Yeah.
Adyashanti and Rupert Spira, because it was like, wait, how do we do this?
Mm,
Uh, direct inquiry again. It was not, nothing was clicking.
yeah.
I think then finally, I was watching YouTube videos and listening to podcasts. I came across David Bingham. I don't know if you,
Yeah.
yeah. And that was like, oh, that made a lot of sense, like the koshas and stuff. But I couldn't
Hmm.
still, I was like, how do I abide in awareness? And that became like a big thing for me.
Yeah.
And the strange thing is, then Angelo came up on my YouTube feed. I read his book, and then I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, this is not helpful. I think I need to do some additional work. And is this now psychological? And why am I not, you know? And the funny thing is, throughout this, I wasn't really suffering. My
Yeah.
suffering was my seeking, right?
Mm.
And then from Angelo, that's where I saw your video. I think you had an interview with Angelo on
Oh,
one of
yeah.
those,
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
right? So I was like, oh, wait, this was, you came across, but I dismissed. Yeah, I was like, okay, fine. I got to stop swapping from one person to the other. And surprisingly, I started doing like Locke Kelly's glimpses practices after that. And then again, your videos kept popping up. And then I was like, glimpses I was like, oh, do I need to keep increasing my span of awareness of these glimpses and maybe I'll finally get it.
Yeah.
But I then finally watched, I think, some of your one-on-ones. I can't remember what it was. And it then struck me immediately when you said, if there is no next, what is there? Right? And I came back to this, like I feel it right now. I can hear
Yeah.
it, I can
Yeah.
sense it. And I was like, okay, I watched another video and I was like, oh, wow, this is what you mean. And it kind of ended my seeking immediately. I was like, oh, my suffering is not uh, anything else. I have a great life. I
Yeah.
have no issues. This is it.
Yeah.
But I was not, then suddenly the doubts started coming like, wait, is this really it? You didn't have any, and this goes back to like, there's no breaking of fetters. You never had any cessation. There was no wisdom download or Buddha giving me a high five, like, hey, you passed this level. So I
Yeah.
think I was like, that kind of kicked in, like, oh, did I really?
No dark night of the soul. No,
Exactly. Yeah.
no trauma work. Saying it was just
Yeah.
kind of like, what the
It,
hell, right? Yeah.
exactly. It's like um, amazing and anticlimactic at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think my expectation was
It's
something
like,
different.
oh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think that's when I set up time because I was like, hey, is there something still that I need to figure out? And uh, but you're right. I started seeing that the doubt is lost its stickiness,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
almost like like just the other day, I was like, oh, maybe I should reread some of the books that I've been reading. And now that I've understood what it is and see if that's what they were talking about. But I'm
Yeah.
like, no, then
No,
you know,
no.
stop seeking, right? There's
Yeah,
nothing for
yeah.
you.
Because
So
it will just compare, that the mind will compare again. But
yeah,
if there's no next, what's there to compare?
yeah, it's just this,
And if there's this um how would you call it, the unspeakable, then what are words about this then,
right?
if it's unspeakable? And yeah,
Yeah.
it's um it's quite
It's
a
that
surprise,
simple.
isn't it?
It is. You know, I had so many questions that I was going to ask you, and but you're right. You just, I think the only thing getting in my way is me getting in the way of myself, right? There's nothing,
Exactly. It's kind of funny, right? So, when you said that, most of the people that I know that are suffering have great lives.
right? And honestly, Emerson, I mean, like I hear your stories in some of the interviews, and I'm like, oh wow, that's not me.
Yeah.
I'm at the. It gets better every year. It feels like,
Yeah.
uh, and and that moment when I watched your videos and I just realized, oh, my suffering is seeking
It
right
is. Yeah. That's what it is. And it, you know what? And seeking, what I'm saying, is just, how do I say it, reinforced
Yeah,
by teachers and speakers
right.
and all that kind of stuff, right? Because you
Yeah,
think that there's something missing because you're
yeah,
comparing. Um, and, you know, those are great guys like Angelo, David being great, great, great.
yeah.
For the seeking mind, right? There's something they have that I don't. And
Yes,
one of the reason, that I started really putting out these videos is
right.
that there's a lot of people suffering that have
Yeah,
great lives, and they're stuck 10, 20, 30, 40 years of seeking.
yeah,
And because they have this mentality now that you will never get it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was so funny, Emerson, because when I watched that, I was like, whoa, I was already there, forget 8 months ago, but almost like about 2 years ago, I had seen it, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
but I dismissed it because I was like, oh, this is not it, it must be something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't have the
According
wow
to this
moment.
and that and this and that, and according to these people,
Yeah,
depending on who you're listening to, right? It looks like such a
right.
far away, distant,
Yeah,
reality, and it becomes this oh, I have like 10 years more or 20 years more. So
right.
the suffering increases because you keep on hearing that it's already awake, or you'll
Right.
hear that it's already this. But
I could tell you that frustrated me when I was like watching, like when I started looking at direct inquiry and stuff like that, and they would be
yeah.
like, "Oh, you're already at." That would trigger me more because I'm like,
Yeah.
"What do you mean?"
And that's why any kind of conclusive words, right? I
Yeah,
don't really use that anymore. If you look at the way in my video, I'm like, well, you know what? It's weird that that the Q&A just promotes more seeking.
yeah, yeah.
So I even
I,
stopped doing Q&A. Um,
yeah.
and I'm just really doing really kind of like directness, basically. Like let's just get to it, basically.
I think like honestly, like after I'd set up this time with you, I was watching more videos and I was like, oh, maybe I should, get up to speed on more of your one-on-ones. But then I noticed, where I'd be watching and someone would say, wait, I now see, I don't know whether it was you or something, one of the uh, interviewees was saying like, oh, I can now see everything in 4K and HD. And I was like, wait, I don't see things in 4K and HD. Do I have it? But then the next sentence would be like, oh, I feel it embodied. And I'm like, oh yeah, I do. I hear the sound of, that silence.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wait, I do. So I'm like, oh, I don't need
Yeah.
to. Yeah, it
Yeah.
just manifests slightly
Yeah.
differently every
Comparison is the thief of joy, right? And
time.
and I love that you're sharing this, because you know what? I get so many letters now of people saying that I just watch your one-on-one videos and it's over for me.
Yeah,
Right. And I'm like, oh, thank you. But I haven't had one that did booked a one-on-one, because
right.
for them it's over, so I book a
Yeah.
one-on-one. so so
I'll tell you what really cinched me with your one-on-ones was you were the only person I've come across in the last several years who mentioned the ringing of the sound of silence.
Yeah.
So this happened to me on like the second retreat when I heard that. I
Yeah.
actually mentioned it to another friend of mine who's also a retreat participant. I was like, here, I hear this odd, ringing that's become very prominent in my ear.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, Nevin, you got tinnitus. And I was like, what? And I I kind of shoved that aside, thinking like, oh, and then um, as soon as I saw that on your video, I was like, wow, this is what I've been
Yeah.
seeing, and that's my signal to it is
Yeah.
everything I look at when I sense the silence. It's like first that, then I feel the silence, and then things start just dropping off into, more like that
Yeah.
feeling of embodiment in the. So,
Yeah.
but I always get the sound is the first indicator for me whenever I look at things, at least recently. So,
Yeah. And again, for me, it was that too, because for quite a while, it was
yeah,
almost like nothing happened really,
right,
but because you're not thinking a lot anymore, you know what I'm saying? So the
yeah,
thinking has really diminished to a
right,
point that you don't really have thoughts.
yeah.
And again, you know what I'm saying? There's practical thoughts still, like, what am I going to eat for dinner, that kind of thing.
And that's
But
what messes me up. It's like I thought like there would be no thoughts. So that was the thing
yeah,
that kept me
yeah,
seeking.
there's even no thoughts is a thought. All right.
Right.
So it's just um but yeah, so I was, and then what I didn't notice, I'm like, wow, wait a second. I haven't had an anxiety attack for quite
Right.
a while now, right? It's almost like you have an instant amnesia of your suffering or
Right.
that seeking suffering because you're not in that loop anymore. So it feels very ordinary, but you um don't even know what ordinary is anymore.
Yeah.
So it's just almost like there's this peacefulness. And
Yeah.
then the ringing of the ear, I did go to a doctor about it, right? So I even went
Oh,
to the doctor. I'm really skeptical now, right? Because this happened
yeah.
to me over, and I've had like 100, 200 glimpses, right? So even when there was this clarity for quite a while, I was like not really doubting it, but I just wanted to kind of like check to see what my ears happening with my ears. The doctor's like, you're okay. And they even had the test for my maybe I thought, I'm like, maybe do I have like like early onset dementia because I don't really have
Right.
a memory anymore, and it's
Okay.
become noticeable even to my family. They're like, what, do you have dementia, Emerson?
Okay.
And no, I'm fine, right? so
Right.
so so that has always been there, that this ringing of the ear, like this,
Yeah. Yeah.
almost
It's
like
always
this
yeah.
noise and like a flat line basically, right?
Yes. Exactly.
and
Yeah.
and I'm very, 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 I'm a DJ, so I'm always making sure that my
Okay.
ears are okay, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Oh
I'm
yeah,
like,
that
I'm
you could
like,
always
okay,
like say that, oh, it was probably loud music or speaker noise that caused this.
yeah,
So even when my friend said it was tinnitus, I was like, no, it can't be, because I've never had, you know,
yeah,
issues or anything. And this was happened during a retreat when things are very silent. I was like, oh, it's probably just like I've never noticed this. It's just become prominent because of, but I didn't
yeah,
realize it's because your mind has become more silent, right? So
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's become so silent that it's like it's permanent. Do you notice the permanence of it?
it is. I
Yeah,
honestly, it was off and on for me. But after watching your, from the last couple of weeks, it's become more to the forefront. For me, it
yeah,
would happen always when I'm more still and quiet.
yeah,
But now it's just like for some reason it's come more to the forefront.
yeah.
Like anything that I look at now, it's like, oh, it's my reminder of
Yeah,
that is it.
that is it. Yeah. And there's no other way. It's just there's this, it's
Right.
beautiful. Yeah, well, it's fascinating to hear these stories, right? Because I always ask people, did I teach you anything?
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah. There, yeah, there is
No,
still
it
like,
can't be taught. That's why.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, what? It's not even a belief because
Yeah.
and that's why I always refer to that ringing, because that can't be taught. That can't be, it's not, it's palpable, right? It's something that's like, oh yeah,
Right. It's like when I wake up in the morning, it's the first, oh,
yeah,
and
yeah,
and it's interesting because now a lot of, so the other thing was I always thought, oh, there's some kind of wisdom download that kind of happens at some point where because they keep saying you meditate, you get insight and wisdom. And now I think, it is this, right? It is the
Yeah.
understanding of, uh, when I wake up in the morning, everything is this, is it?
Yeah.
And when you're dreaming and now like, oh, I actually see the parallels with uh as in the dream, it felt so believable, although there were so many red flags, but you only realize that when you wake up in the morning, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that's what this is, right? We are,
That's what it is, right? Because you know what, it's like especially seeking, right? Because we've had a lot of false starts,
yeah,
like for example, when I was the same, I went through meditation too. I went through my experience is not as good with Vipassana.
okay.
I thought I have gone insane and because it's silent, right? And
Oh yeah,
my
yeah.
monkey mind kind of like took over and you're like, you're in a psychiatric, ward. And so I was asking people, I'm like, it's a psychiatric ward. Did you finally catch us?
One guy in my retreat came and asked me like, Evan, this is like prison. And I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah, yeah, that's what I said.
They
Like,
ring a bell and you eat your meals. They
that's
ring a
right. Yeah,
bell and you do that.
yeah,
Everything's like prison. And I was like,
yeah,
oh wow, that's an interesting way of looking.
yeah, yeah. So I basically said, how do we get out of here? They're like, shh. And of course, they caught on that I was asking everybody, like the people that were kind of like,
Okay.
yeah.
That's
But yeah,
brilliant.
you know what? It's funny, right? Because it's gonna be different for everybody. There's people that have
Yeah.
never even meditated, and then
Right.
those 20-year-old guys. I don't know if you've seen those one-on-ones with the young kids. I'm like,
Yeah. Not yet.
not yet.
At
So
least some of them. Yeah.
there's the 25, 23, 22, and I'm gonna smack you. I said, it took me 30 years.
Oh,
I
you
said in
hear
the
that?
story, I
Yeah.
lost everything, and here you're like, it's enough. This is absolutely enough. That kind of thing, right? Or there's this
Yeah.
young kid basically like, oh, like, did you do a meditation practice? Like, no. I'm like, what prompted you to this? He goes, one day your YouTube video came and I don't have
Oh,
any experience with spirituality. And I'm like, so do you know what's happening? And he goes, this feels great. And you know what? He goes,
oh.
thank you. You know, it was just
Uh,
so ordinary for them, right? It's just
Sometimes
um
I feel I was like, oh, I wish I'd found you earlier because then I would have not had to. But then I look back and I'm like, oh no,
it's
this was
beautiful too. Like that's why
right where I was
I
meant
never
to.
knock, yeah, I never knock meditation or anything like that, right? Because
And
that's it too.
And honestly, this morning, I mean, I still meditate. Even this morning, I got up and I was like, I sat. It feels the same, but
Yeah.
I did 30 minutes, and my wife was like, "Wait, you normally sit for an hour. Like, what's wrong?" And I was like, "Oh no, no, I'm fine. I'm good."
Well, for me, I don't anymore because mine became an obsession. Became kind of like, okay,
Right.
I have to meditate 2, 3, 4 hours. If my meditation was
Yeah.
like 3 hours and 55 minutes when I'm should be doing 4 hours, it
Yeah.
would ruin my entire day. I would go into a panic attack or because I had
Right.
anxiety. So
Right.
now I just walk around the park, and I enjoy
Yeah.
my mornings. It's very quiet,
I've been
so
going on
nice.
bike rides, and that has
Oh,
been amazing for me because uh, I think the nature aspect, like you said, like walking in park. But then the second
mhm.
thing is just the sound of the wind through
Yeah,
your ears as
yeah,
you're riding. It feels refreshing now. I can do like 20 miles and I don't feel uh oh my God. Otherwise it was in your head like, oh, you can do a little more, you can go a little more. But now it's
yeah.
like this is
That's what it is. Like, I used to exercise to get fit, right? But now I love doing it for
right.
no reason at all. It's like I love
So
running now. And oh, in my area here in Canada, there's scooters all over the place. You put your credit card, and so this morning I did my scooter and it was just the speed, right?
yeah,
And the wind just kind of
the
like,
wind, yeah.
oh my goodness.
I was like, it feels like meditation, right?
Yeah.
But actually, yeah, yeah. I mean, it is just
Meditation on wheels. Well,
so
everything is going to be like meditation now. If you start noticing it, even talking to your
yeah,
wife, right?
yeah.
Right now,
Yeah.
There's this there's
Feel it.
this directness, right? So you're not all over the place, thinking.
Right.
Yeah,
So I think the question that arises is there anything, I know there's nothing to be done, but is
yeah.
there some deepening of this or
In the
relearning?
story, in the story, there is, right? Don't go
Yes.
to the next, because the next, if you keep on, if you're forcing it, then you'll go back into thoughts and thinking
Yeah.
that I'm missing something and everything. But there's a natural flow of like a deepening, like
Yeah.
I'm more in
But I
love.
don't have to do, the character has to do nothing.
No,
Okay.
no, no, no. What's between doing and not doing?
This.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, in the narrative, there is a deepening. People that have talked to 2 years, one
Yeah.
year ago, right? The moment that they stop seeking, that's the only thing. If you
Right.
keep on seeking what other people are saying, then you get trapped again
Okay.
on some others' belief systems. And you know what? Everyone's great. Everyone's just doing the best that. But yeah, that's what I noticed. The people that have basically, um, stopped, like watching YouTube videos,
Yeah.
are in such a deep, deep state of relaxation or in loveness. You know, um,
Yeah.
yeah. And there's just yeah, it's like I think I'm more in love now than I was before in the story anyway. There's more
Right.
joy.
Yeah. Yeah. There is
Um,
more joy. Yeah.
there's more joy,
Um,
there's more peace. And even the way that I deliver now, you know what? Again, it's just this is just a story, I don't take it
yeah.
seriously. It's more precise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think in my mind, it was like, oh, it should be like, this bliss and oneness all the time. That was the story I was telling myself. But I just realized like, neutral or, what is
Yeah.
good and bad
Well,
and
if you
what is
pay if you
neutral.
pay, you pay $10,000 more than I can take you to. I'm kidding. That's when you get hooked with the guru. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
always something missing, something missing. So when
Yeah.
there's no next, whatever seems to appear, it's fine. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like the weather. Sometimes it's going to be bright and sunny. Sometimes it's going to be stormy and rainy.
I
It's
love
all the
that.
same. Yeah.
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 And that's interesting, right? I mean, I think that was one of the things I was like, I'd written it down somewhere. I was like, oh, I need to ask Emerson about this right now. Does the perception of it vary in strength and clarity? Because it feels like sometimes, like, oh, because like when you're talking or working, you do sometimes have to, uh, get more into yourself. And
Yeah.
then, but I think it's just,
Any word that comes up, we'll just try to create a reality.
right.
What's between reality and illusion?
Yeah.
There's no words really for it if you look at it. And even if I don't know if you've seen this already, even awareness is just another concept.
So yeah,
Yeah, it's very direct, right?
there's awareness.
It's
Yeah.
just another word. What's awareness? What's awareness? Yeah.
And oh my God, that
What's
rest in awareness thing had tripped me up so much.
I know. I did that for a long, long time, Nevin, right? And I was just so frustrated with awareness. And then I got into the seat of consciousness too. And I'm like, okay, I'm not abiding. I'm not all the it's going to the next. And
Yeah,
even do you think you know what? And it's funny, right? And again, much respect to the Fetter's work and everything, right? Because
right. Yeah.
but it doesn't make sense for you right now, right?
What feathers and how do I know? Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And that's
Oh,
what I thought, much respect, right? To some
yeah,
people that might appeal and some people. But
yeah.
even shadow work, I don't even understand it at this moment. Do you?
No,
No.
and that's honestly when I started looking at non-duality, and there was like, oh, it kind of goes more into, uh, you, shadow work and
Others.
almost like the psychotherapy type thing. And then I was
It
like,
is, yeah.
what do I have? It's something that I don't know. You start getting more like, what do I have to let go now?
Yeah, yeah. And it's just always the next, the next, the next, the
Yeah,
next, the
next.
next, the next, right? You're kind of like you're
Yeah,
waiting for something to happen.
yeah,
Then you're trapped in time again. Time is thought is time. Without time, there's no thought. Without thought,
Yeah.
yeah, it's all just illusory. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's beautiful
It,
because it's this has been about how long has it been? Like I keep on misthinking my timeline, but it doesn't matter. Like 6 years,
doesn't
seven,
matter.
8 years, I don't know. Um, of pure contentment.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. And I've even seen it doesn't mean that my life has is drama free and everything.
Right. Yeah.
There's still stuff that happens that the old Emerson would have completely fallen apart or just not been able to take it and everything. There's still some challenges that appear, especially
Yeah.
when you're a speaker and then you're doing a whole bunch of this stuff and then it challenges others people's belief system.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's because it's so direct. They're like, oh, that's
Yeah.
so the so much noise about this when I'm just being silent.
Right. And I'm actually learning to trust operating from this because it feels a little like, uh, oh, you're not really planning or, like how do I know what to say or do, or
Yeah, yeah.
there's some of that that comes up like, oh, should I be, but it just works itself out, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Again, right? You know what I'm saying? It's just like, and this sounds kind of like cliche and everything.
Yeah.
It's almost like trusting the process that there's no process.
Yeah. There's no problem.
If you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
It's like
So I
it's
was going to ask you, like, how do I operate from this? Because it feels like, oh, wait, this is like, I have
you've
to
been
operate
operating this
fully.
way the whole time.
Right. Yeah.
Someone actually earlier today, right? I had this guy goes, Emerson, I'm a surgeon. I'm a surgeon.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
do I have to quit my job now? And and he goes, oh wait a second. This is actually where I go to when I'm in surgery. Because that's why
Yeah.
probably I'm really good at what I do. And I'm like, yeah, this is the
Right.
space where all creativity seems to stem from, right? Where
Flow,
it's
I
love
say.
songs, the flow, yeah. And he goes, okay, all
Yeah.
right. And he goes, well, I didn't even really need you. And I'm like, no, no, because it's just seeing that it's always been this way.
Yeah.
And the words get in the way. And then you get in the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
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 Right. So I guess the thoughts will become less and less sticky.
It doesn't matter if it's sticky or not, isn't it? Because even thoughts that are sticky are still thoughts. But when you
So
see generally that all thoughts are just irrelevant,
yeah. Right.
sticky or
And
not, it doesn't matter.
right.
Yeah. Because you start saying, oh, that thought is smooth, that thought is sticky. Then it goes back into,
Yeah.
measuring, something that is pointless to measure, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in the story, I'll tell you a story again, right? Because people that have done this like 2 years, 1 year or whatever, um, yeah, we sometimes talk and just, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters anymore. Right.
Right.
So even if it's some sticky situation,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that you're going to be blissful all the time when someone, when you get sick or someone passes away or something, you're going to cry.
Yeah.
It's like, but
I
the tears and that, you know, you know,
yeah.
um, rawness, is not avoided or rejected or prolonged by
Yeah.
ideas of what it should be and shouldn't be.
I spent some time a few months ago with my mom, and I was like, some of the old thing I was a lot better than, and I was like, oh wow, this is the things that normally bubble up to
Yeah,
that trigger me aren't, but then there are still like those things that I'm like, oh, why am I getting frustrated with this thought? I have so much work to do, and I'm so far off from. But then but it's gone. Like afterwards, it's like, oh,
yeah.
wasn't, yeah,
Yeah,
didn't
for
need.
me, like for example, I spend time with my mom, right? So sometimes I'm just there, she's sleeping and I just go blank completely.
Yeah,
I'm not bored at all or whatever.
yeah,
And then for example, like 3 hours go by and then she wakes up. So she goes, how long have you been there? I'm like, and I look at my watch, I'm like,
oh
doesn't
wow,
matter. Three
yeah,
hours, and just
yeah,
watching her sleep
right,
because everything is just peaceful, right? So
yeah,
yeah, so stuff like that. But the side effect is that you don't have memory really. right? So
Right.
you're
Like
um,
water on a duck's back, everything.
yeah, it just everything just slides, right? So
Yeah.
and yeah, and there's no more really kind of like it's funny, right? Because there are still some, it's so surprising that there are still some people that are even if they claim to be whatever, that
Yeah.
have jealousy towards you and talk about you and everything. For me, it doesn't really, maybe initially it was stingy and I'm like, oh, that's weird. But now
Right.
it's just like, oh well, that's also it. Who
Yeah.
cares? It's just words. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I
I've got
love what I do, Nevin. I love what I do. I don't know if you can tell.
I can tell the fact that you can spend so much time, you're going person by person. So
Yeah.
that's dedication. I mean, most
Yeah.
people would be like, "Oh, I'm just gonna have a beauty group meeting and
Yeah. Well,
getting
the huge group meeting, I just saw that it just becomes practice. People keep on
yeah,
coming and coming. And I have I'm traveling, but um I have I'm not so attached to them anymore because it's just promotes seeking, right? The
right,
Q&A. Like I can do a YouTube live, but what's the point of that? So even when I have meetings, I just really go directly and just say, what's your belief?
yeah.
What are you without your belief? What are you without
Honestly,
a you? Yeah.
your one-on-ones, I watch like just that first portion of it, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Someone said that too. Yeah. It's just like goes, it just takes 10, where someone basically is someone wrote me like, I don't know, like a massive letter, the history of seeking and all of the teachers and the speakers that he has gone through.
Right,
It's the record, I invited him to do a Zoom, because it's like, I think the record is like, this is like 67 years of seeking,
oh my,
which is probably the longest one. He's like he's oh no. I don't know. I'm getting my number wrong. Anyway, but he keeps on writing me these beautiful long letters
yeah,
of how he basically bankrupted himself from seeking, going to one retreat to one residentials over and over and over again,
yeah.
that his legacy is seeking. and,
Oh, I
and
feel
then he said
thankful I
that
got
he
that quick.
no, he's super happy according to his letter. So he's written me about four letters now, and I don't think he knows how to do Zoom. That's why, because he's that older gentleman, right? And he's English, and
Yeah,
he's basically said, he goes, I watched your YouTube videos before, and I was first irritated that you were going off script of what all the non-duality speakers, like, what is this guy doing? I like him, because
right.
why is he being such a bastard, and being a rebel? And then
Yeah,
and then one day he said, my videos just kept on popping up and popping up. He basically said, what did he say? What an arrogant prick. So he pressed one of the thing because I kept on using the instant, instant. And then he said, 2 minutes into it, he could
yeah,
not find his thoughts.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of like uh, out of all the non-duality pointers that I've heard, yours just this is it. And uh, it was instant. Like I looked there and immediately I was like, oh,
Oh,
this
yeah.
is what they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And then I think in a couple more it was, yeah, this is definitely it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I've had this clarity, but it's kind of funny, right? Because I started out in the non-duality community anyway as a host.
okay,
So I didn't have credibility. You know what I'm saying? People are just saying, "Oh, you know what?" People just brush me off right away,
yeah,
and because he talks normal and he's just very ordinary, right? He doesn't, that kind of thing, because I did not do the checklist of
right, yeah,
what
yeah,
should be, and I like that, because you know what? Why don't
yeah,
we? It's a new era, right? It's let's
exactly.
shake off all of that ideas of someone on a pedestal,
Yeah,
and
right,
admiring someone for their clarity. How about authenticity?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the point, right? Like,
Yeah,
blah blah.
because you're not going to start sounding like me after this, right? It's You're still Nevin, right?
Oh,
And well,
Yeah.
it's hard to copy my accent, Nevin. So, um,
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind. Uh, like you said, I keep finding myself lost for, oh, should I be thinking, and
yeah, yeah,
but I think you're right? It's I should not be getting in my own way because that remember I said like, oh, I wanted to actually go and rewatch like Adya Shanti or read some of the books and see like, oh, is he talking about this? There's almost like that compulsion, like, oh, should I be, now because I know what they're talking about, should
yeah,
I go and see were they pointing to the same things? And
yeah.
I'm,
To be
just
honest with you, you know what? And this is not going to sound good.
yeah,
Um, the clarity that you have is not in words.
yeah, it's not in words
Yeah.
exactly.
And most people, the only clarity that people have is expressing how clear they are.
Right.
Yeah. Which is still conceptual, which is still passed on. This was not passed on to you. I don't know if you noticed. You did not learn anything. You did not believe anything. There's something
Right.
cleared up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cleared up exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
is not based on a Buddhist tradition or,
Right.
or a radical tradition or, an
Yeah.
advaita tradition or any tradition, basically.
It
Yeah.
was always
It's
here.
it's
Yeah.
always here. Yeah. You didn't have to make up a new word like, consciousness awareness or, or
Exactly. Yeah.
boundless energy or anything, right? So there's a new era. The era of the teacher and the speaker is diminishing, right?
Yeah.
So because there's people now that are doing what I'm doing and they're not teachers or speakers. Some of them are coaches, some of them are psychologists, some of them are teachers, some of them are a pediatrician. You know,
Yeah.
they have this like pediatrician, from Brisbane that said that I love what you're doing and I'm going to do it for the children that he's dealing with that has anxiety
Well,
and
okay.
depression.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's accessible all of a
Yeah.
sudden. Yeah, you don't have to
And
call it anything. Yeah,
and that's what I found was really refreshing when I saw some of your like the interviews. It's like people who've been practicing different traditions or not at all still can just get
it's
it,
the
right?
same
So
thing. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
it's the same. Yeah, it's accessible. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Love it.
yeah. Well, I love your clarity, Nevin. It's great that you're seeing this before going again. Like because the
Yeah.
the the mind is trying to go somewhere to land, right? But it doesn't
Right.
really have a landing because there's no landing whatsoever, right? It's
Exactly.
trying to say like maybe I should go to like research. No,
Yeah.
that's a
That's
landing. Ajashanti. You know what I'm saying? Beautiful, beautiful.
yeah. I've got so
Talks.
many books on my Kindle that I have to now just erase or keep it away.
Yeah, you know what? That's what I did because my neurosis basically was based on my beliefs on those words.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I kept and then I looking back, it's like, oh, it's always been here, but I keep on screwing myself up by saying that, well, this is not abide. I'm not abiding in it.
Right.
Although there's clarity.
Yeah.
Or the thought will be like, well, still feels that there's a me here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Right. And I
And then how
think,
come it's so contradictory? They kept saying this is it,
yeah.
and but yeah. Anyway, it's
Yeah, I think the phrase that I loved that, really resonated with me was when you're saying like, what is between, uh, the me and no me or the self
yeah,
and no self.
yeah.
And that's, I think I never looked at it that way. We're always looking for polarity,
That's
right? But
right. And that's the same thing with awareness.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
like,
I'm
oh, my
looking
mind
to
should do
abide.
nothing. But no,
Yeah.
it's still gonna have thoughts. And yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and that's what it is, right? Because the seeker is fueled by the
Right.
next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we can't say
So
that
when
they're
when the fuel runs out, then you're like, "Oh, wow."
exactly
That's what happens with between the me and no me. Then
right.
there's no continuation of that thought.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
goes into it's like it's almost like a direct hit, right? Or a loophole because there's a loop, it's a
Yeah.
loophole.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I, I think I was going to ask you that as well. Like, do I need to keep an eye out for getting lack of clarity at any point, or like one eye on the thoughts and mind for self-doubt? But I think no, I think it's now.
Whatever seems to appear is
Yeah.
just another
Yeah.
narrative, right? So the narrative will continue.
Yeah.
It's seen clearly, Um, yeah, you know what? It's there was one time, you know what, like there's many moments that I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so happy with this clarity. And one day I was like walking, and then there was this tightness in my chest. I'm like, no, no. And I was like,
Yeah,
and I went home and I was like, I'm like, the me or the self came back. Then I
yeah.
took some antacid, and then the antacid, it was just, you know, gas, really. It was just, or
Yeah,
one day I was walking, I was like, so much clarity. And then a thought came about my something really shameful about my past when I was a teenager. And I'm like, and I laughed so hard. I'm like, that's really low. Wow. Wow
yeah,
thoughts, right? Wow,
yeah,
Emerson, right? It's like, wow, right?
exactly.
It's like,
Yeah,
it's the moment that you think that I got here, that I've arrived. I'm so clear now, right? Then watch it. A thought will come in to jeopardize that. It's just kind of like, you know, it's like, because when
oh,
there's a landing, there's another landing to continue it. But when you don't connect the two, then
yeah,
it's over.
right.
It's
Yeah,
over
yeah. And it's
when you're
it's
not
fun
thinking.
how the
But when you're
speaker was
thinking, it's never over, because the thinking will just keep on, you know. But when you see that it's never over, what's between over and it's never over.
infinity. This, yeah,
Yeah, infinity. Yeah, yeah. It's just the infinite expressions of the infinite,
yeah,
infinitely playing as this or that.
yeah. And and I love how that seeker just slipped in there, right? Because it was like I'm looking everywhere for it, but
Yeah. Where's the
that was it.
infinity? Show me where infinity is.
Yeah,
But the infinite does not have a position, right? So, you know, so it's an expression, but it can never land.
right.
Yeah.
Wow. This is it's been a journey.
Yeah. And yet there was no journey.
And yet there was no journey, yes. I actually get those references now.
Yeah, right?
The gateless gate and
The
stuff like
gateless
that. And
gate.
I was
Yeah.
like, what
Yeah.
the hell does that mean?
Yeah. My new expression now is slap the master,
Yeah, yeah.
because
Like,
you're waiting for the master to,
right.
to give you the next. Slap the
Yeah,
master and you wake him up.
yeah.
There's no master.
No
There's no
matter.
speaker. You know, saying
Yeah,
this is the infinite playing its roles. It's like, because there's no more hierarchy.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's pointless to try and understand the why behind it, right? Because it will never be understood by this mind. So,
Yeah. The question will always propose an answer. So when you see the question is irrelevant, then there's no
yeah,
answer, and that's fine.
right.
Yeah.
Because especially with this whole like, oh wait, we're the infinite being. What is the infinite being doing over here? And why is it doing this way? It doesn't matter,
It
right?
doesn't matter. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It's like trying to understand child's play.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. It's just play, right?
Right. Awesome.
All right, Nev, I'm gonna stop
Yeah.
the recording here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I I I'm certain this is it, and
Yeah.
but I'd love to see like in a year or so from now.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and but
Some
there is no
people,
time, right? So
there's no time. Yeah, 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 yeah. I have a lot of reunions with people now from a year ago or 2 years ago, right? So,
okay,
and it's
yeah,
been beautiful. It's been beautiful, right? It's like it definitely um sticks when there is no more
yeah,
wanting to look for. The only thing that it fails usually is when people start going back into meetings, going back into Zooms,
right,
and
yeah,
because there's always, it's an unfair thing that's happening, right? Because there's always going to be a speaker that
yeah,
you think knows everything, and you're
right,
looking for an answer.
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
easy to believe what they're saying because they have to come from a place of conviction, or a narrative that there's no one here, or it's emptiness or whatever. Love
yes,
those speakers, but don't buy what they're saying.
agreed. Well,
Right.
thank you so much, Emerson. I think the clarity through your videos and what you've been doing is just fantastic. uh, lots of gratitude and loving kindness your way for doing what you
Oh,
do. And I think uh, you're changing a lot of lives and you don't even know it.
oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. This changed my life immensely, right? So
Yeah,
why just talk about it when you can express it,
yeah,
when you can show
exactly.
it basically? Because that was the dilemma before. I'm like, it must be so annoying to see someone smiling all the time,
Right.
and like talking about the infinite, and everything. But and then you're like, oh, not that
Yeah,
that bastard, speaking about,
yeah,
whatever orgasms, about enlightenment, awakening, know me and everything. But you know
exactly.
what? Then here I am listening. So I'm like, why don't we go there? Let's go there. So it's just
The,
that talk. It's just all talk.
yeah,
Talk is cheap, right? So,
yeah.
and it feels like right now it's just like everybody's just masturbating. You know what I'm saying? When you're talking about, um,
There's so much out there, like every forum, every uh, it's just people just adding more and more ideas, and
yeah,
you don't even know, like, wait, where are they coming from, right? What is their,
yeah. And
yeah,
then and it's sad to when people start speaking the same,
yeah,
right? And it's
right,
just and it's just mimicking each other's, and
right,
or when people say according to this, according to that, right? So it's
yeah.
just secondhand,
Like,
in
on the
it,
Buddhist Reddit forums, like, oh, unless you've had a cessation, you have not, and I was like, what is cessation? Why am I not got
that's
that,
right.
right?
That's a
It's
new
like,
cessation, cessation, cessation. Yeah,
I've been
yeah.
meditating, I can do this, but I've never got that cessation. Oh, so it can't be it, that kind
Yeah, there was even one time, I was in big into the yamas and the niyamas, you know what I'm saying? And I was like,
of.
I need I said, brahmacharya. I said, I can't have sex anymore.
Yeah,
Apagigaraha, I can't eat anymore.
right.
Might as
Yeah.
well be dead,
Yeah,
saying.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
This is so natural. I mean, I didn't think you could function
yeah,
uh,
it's
so
natural, right? It's
natural.
alive.
Yeah,
And then you can still be with your wife, and you don't have to tell your wife, I'm shaving my head tomorrow, darling. And then
exactly.
you can't have sex with me.
Um,
But and you can't look me in the eye as well, right?
exactly.
Because I might get tempted. Well, love you, Nevin. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Oh, I'm gonna
Thank
ask
you
you a
so much.
question.